Hey there, and welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into a genuinely fascinating, yet kind of forgotten chapter of history. We're going to explore the vibrant, bustling, and honestly thoroughly magical world of India's company theaters. We'll be unpacking an era where art wasn't just, something you did for a few hours a day, it was an entire way of life. All right, I want you to put yourself in the shoes of a 19th century artist for a second. Imagine if your entire existence, your family, your education, your work, and your art was just blended into one chaotic, beautiful package. You're rehearsing every single day. You're wearing these elaborate costumes and heavy makeup day in and day out. You eat with your team, you play with them, sleep in the exact same camps, and travel across the entire country with them. Could you do it? Because for these artists, the stage was quite literally their home. So the crucial takeaway here is that these weren't just your standard 9-to-5 jobs. They were massive, self-sustaining ecosystems. The term company theater describes these professional troupes that thrived mostly through the 18th, 19th, and 20th centuries. And when we say self-sufficient, we mean it. A single traveling company would employ their own makeup artists, tailors, set designers, painters, lighting techs, actors, dancers, singers, writers, and even their own dedicated cooks, managers, and accountants. They had literally everything they needed to survive. It functioned almost like a small, mobile village completely dedicated to the performing arts. To really put a human face to this massive communal lifestyle, you just have to think about the sheer scale of groups like the Surabi Theater. You weren't just looking at a cast of actors, you were looking at entire families. Children were actually born into this lifestyle, they grew up backstage, and eventually they took their own places under the stage lights. It was a total, multi-generational commitment where absolutely everyone, regardless of age, played a part in making The Daily Show a reality. So here's the roadmap for our journey today. First, the Parsi theater pioneers. Second, Surabi's magical tradition. Third, the Great Gooby Company. Fourth, the fall of company theater. And finally, modern professional theater. Let's jump right in. Section 1. The Parsi theater pioneers. Let's start with the trailblazers who took local acts and turned them into absolute traveling sensations all over India. The rapid expansion of these performing groups was just staggering. Well, we actually see early self-sufficient troupes popping up in Calcutta as far back as the 1700s, but the real touring pioneers were the Parsi theater companies based in Bombay, which is modern-day Mumbai. In 1853, the very first Parsi theater company, called the Parsi Natak Mandali, put on their first play, Ristom Zabuli and Sohrab, and it was a massive hit. By 1860, so just 7 years later, over 20 Parsi theater groups had formed in Mumbai alone. From the 1850s all the way to the 1930s, their specific proscenium style of production completely revolutionized live entertainment, sparking similar theatrical movements in places like Maharashtra, Karnataka, and Andhra Pradesh. Section 2. Surabi's magical tradition. As this movement spread like wildfire across the country, powerful regional giants began to step into the spotlight. One of the absolute most famous was the Surabi Theater, which formed in Andhra Pradesh back in 1885. To keep audiences completely hooked night after night, Surabi relied on elaborate costumes, intense makeup, and what was essentially 19th century live visual effects. They were bringing these incredibly grand props, like actual horse-drawn chariots, right onto the stage. They pulled off logic-defying magical feats that just left audiences gasping. It was pure, unadulterated spectacle. And honestly, what's truly mind-blowing is their longevity. Their unwavering dedication to performing traditional Hindu stories, histories, and folk legends has allowed this specific family troupe to survive for an astonishing 138 years. They are actually one of the very few company theaters still operating today. They still showcase iconic blockbusters like Sri Krishna Lililu, the beloved Maya Bazaar, and Balanagama. It's basically a living time capsule of theatrical history. Section 3. The Great Gooby Company. Now, let's head over to Karnataka and see how this builds into an era of massive mega hits and progressive milestones. Right around the same time Surabi was blowing up in Andhra Pradesh, Karnataka's theater scene was absolutely exploding. A huge factor in their success was liberal royal patronage. The Maharajas of Mysore heavily supported these arts, donating really generously to keep the troops thriving. Because of this backing, companies like the famous Gooby Company created absolute mega hits. Plays like Sadarame ran packed houses, with people literally camping out in queues for days just to score a ticket. Now, the Gubby Company wasn't just popular. They were seriously progressive pioneers who forever changed the landscape of the Indian entertainment industry. For instance, they broke a major social barrier by becoming the very first troupe to allow women to act on stage. Beyond that, they were this incredible incubator for top-tier talent. The legendary Kannada actor, Dr. Raj Kumar, launched his career right there with the Gubby Company. So did the renowned theater director B.V. Karanth. They weren't just performing plays, they were literally shaping the future of Indian cinema and theater. Section 4. The Fall of Company Theater. Sadly, no golden age lasts forever. Post-independence India brought a whole new set of insurmountable challenges to these traveling troupes. So, what actually dismantled this incredible lifestyle? Well, it boils down to four distinct antagonists. First up, financial management. Sustaining a massive, traveling community of hundreds of people required immense efficiency, which, frankly, most companies just lacked. Second, the rise of the cinema industry brought in intense technological competition. Third, in a pretty desperate bid to attract audiences, some companies shifted toward inappropriate content and unhealthy humor, which ended up totally alienating their core family-oriented audience. And lastly, the rise of amateur or Havaisi theater gained immense popularity simply because it was way more convenient for both the performers and local audiences. But out of all these factors, the absolute heaviest blow was for sure the advent of cinema. It was a total paradigm shift. The desire for visual spectacle, which companies like Subrabhi had provided for decades with their live stage magic, suddenly shifted to the silver screen. Cinema could offer novel camera techniques, perfect lighting, multiple takes, and mass distribution. Economically, a live, traveling family of actors simply couldn't compete with that. The massive audiences that once queued for days for a stage play, they were now lining up at the movie theaters. Section 5. Modern Professional Theater. Despite the tragic decline of the communal company theater lifestyle, the spirit of professional performance hasn't vanished. Let's look at our modern era. While the vast traveling families living and eating together are mostly a thing of the past now, professional repertoires have beautifully adapted. Today, theater companies are still providing incredibly high-quality productions. By integrating the latest developments in science and technology, modern theater techniques have been massively upgraded. We're talking state-of-the-art stage lighting, immersive sound design, and automated set pieces that create visually stunning experiences, all while capturing that live communal energy and packaging it perfectly for today's audience. And that brings us to a really fascinating crossroads. As we marvel at all these modern tech upgrades, we've got to ask ourselves, what does the future hold for the live, breathing magic that those historic company theaters first brought to the masses? Will science and technology act as the ultimate savior of the live stage, keeping it fresh and relevant for future generations? Or will the line between cinema, virtual reality, and live theater blur so much that the traditional stage gets replaced entirely? It's definitely something to chew on the next time you take a seat in a darkened auditorium. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer of India's company theaters. Keep learning, and I'll catch you next time.